Why YouTube? Why am I doing this to myself? I have set a goal of posting one video every day throughout 2026 to my YouTube channel. Why on earth would I do this to myself? I've mentioned some of the reasons in previous videos, so I won't go too deeply into that. But one of the main reasons I've chosen to do this here on YouTube is that it's easy. And JT and I did a podcast this morning about keep it simple, silly, the KISS principle, that sometimes we put stumbling blocks in our own path. And by simplifying things as much as possible, we can get past those blocks, especially if we're doing something like YouTube or something like writing. It's very easy to take a step back and say, well, no, I can't do that because it's too hard, or I don't like the results, or a variety of other reasons. And I apologize, my sinuses are still acting up. If you happened to watch yesterday's video, I did have a couple of coughing fits, so I'm trying not to do that today, but we'll see what happens. But that is part of what I'm talking about. I could have taken the time to try to cut those out of the video. I chose to leave them in because the video wasn't going to be perfect anyway, and I needed to work on book 2 of the Restless Spirit series, so the follow-up to Passion Restored. And I need to get back to that today. So again, I'm doing this video just sitting down and talking to the camera. And that's one of the reasons that I'm doing this on YouTube this year, because I do tend to be a bit of a perfectionist. And if something isn't perfect, if something isn't right, I'll say, oh, never mind, I'll try again later. And then I never get to it. So you are getting almost completely raw footage. I cut off the beginning and the end of these videos. I'm using the free version of DaVinci Resolve for that. You may have noticed that in some videos I might pop in a few extra pictures or add different video footage, but I'm trying not to do that very often because I'm also trying to hold myself accountable to my writing schedule. And YouTube is the easiest way for me to be accountable to myself, to put out a product, and to not have to think too hard about it. Now, I have watched a lot of videos about people who talk about you can start a YouTube channel, you can monetize, you can, make a better lifestyle for yourself. And that would be awesome, but that's not my goal with what I'm doing this year. Like I said, my goal is to be accountable to myself. My goal is to push past my perfectionism, to keep it simple, silly, and I'm doing my best to stay true to that. I will admit that this is the second time I've tried this video this morning. I did a couple minutes and then I cut it off because sinuses. And it's just something that I deal with on a regular basis. It's part of who I am. It's part of my life. And it's staying in for now. At a later time, when I'm not so pressed for time to write and edit, I may spend more time trying to polish these videos to improve them a little bit. But for right now, I hope they're good enough as it stands. They are not scripted. I sit down and I just say whatever is in my mind at the moment. So they often may not make complete sense. I try to stick to a particular topic, but anyone who knows me knows that I'm a rambler and I like to ramble through whatever is going on in my mind. So if you don't mind a rambler, I hope you are following along on this journey, because I know even my wonderful husband of more than 40 years sometimes gets a little irritated when I go off on a tangent, and I do that quite often. So my rambly YouTube videos are pretty much unedited versions of what's going on in my head. And that's why I felt I could set the goal for myself of posting one video per day to YouTube throughout the course of this year. I'm now about 7.5 weeks into this experience. I believe Wednesday, I can't remember what day January 1st fell on, but whatever day of the week that is, will be my 8 weeks. And it's going well so far. There have been days when I really didn't feel like doing this, but I sat down and I did it and I posted it, whether I liked it or not. So what I'm hoping you get out of this, because while I'm doing this mostly for myself, I'm hoping that at some point maybe somebody will find one of these videos to be of help to them. What I'm hoping that help might be is to show you that you can be yourself. You don't have to put a lot of time and effort into something to share with the world. Just be authentic. And I'm seeing, as I've done YouTube research, that authenticity is very popular right now because so much of what we're seeing in the world is AI generated. I don't use AI. I won't use AI. And I just want to put something out into the world that I personally created. And I hope that somebody else might find it to be of interest. I have mentioned that the mission of the podcasts that JT and I do, as well as these videos, and our company, Two More Books LLC, is to encourage, educate, and entertain. I don't know how often I'm entertaining. I do watch YouTubers for purely entertainment purposes, but I find that I also learn a lot from them. So there are several channels that I enjoy. I may talk more about those at some point, but they are much different from what I'm doing. They've been doing this for much, much longer, and they spend a lot more time and effort putting out much more polished products than what I'm doing. My hope is that by being real, by showing you how you can just put something out into the world without putting a lot of time and effort into it, aside from your, normal efforts, I guess. I guess what I meant to say was extra effort, because sitting down in front of a camera in the first place can be an effort, especially I watched a YouTube this morning, a short one, where he was talking about what he got out of YouTube. And part of his realization was that sitting down in front of a camera is not natural. And many of us have a hard time doing it. But as I have progressed through these 7 weeks so far this year, I'm finding that sitting down and just talking is coming much more easily to me. Practice makes perfect. Not that anything is ever perfect, but let's say practice makes progress. So as I'm doing these videos, hopefully the quality will improve. Hopefully my thought processes will calm down a little bit, and I will have a more logical progression through the subjects I'm discussing. At this point, I have no plans to script anything. I have no plans to do any major editing with these videos. And I'm just going to continue putting them up. I mean, lighting, every once in a while I will use an extra light, but I'm not working on saturation and colors and, setting up the scene or anything like that right now. I am aware of them and I would like to try to play more with them. But at this point in time, the whole purpose is to just put something out there. So what I'm doing is I have a tripod. I have an iPhone, I think I'm on a 12. So it's not even the newest version of an iPhone. The quality of the video is pretty good. I then download that to my computer, put it into DaVinci Resolve really quick, snip off the beginning and the end. I am putting on an end screen that I have created just about my channel. I'm Cassidy Carson and this is The Life of a Writer. You may have noticed that for the last couple of videos, yesterday and today, I did not introduce myself at the beginning of the video because I am trying to evolve based on some of the recommendations I've seen. And one of them is that you want to be consistent with your video title, with your video description, and with your video introduction. So I'm trying that to see if it helps promote my videos a little bit more. Not that I'm expecting that to happen, because as I said, these are really not perfect. I'm not going for perfect, I'm going for a product. And that product is what it is. You're watching the evolution of me learning about using YouTube, learning about what I can accomplish by just sitting down and talking through whatever is on my mind and putting it out into the world. Every once in a while, I do promote these videos on social media. I'm across all the platforms. So if you go to our website at www.carsonhume.com, you will find links to all of our social media platforms. You can find links to where our podcasts can be found, the CC and JT Amateur Hour, and the Nevada Author Network, where we try to help writers write. And we do, on the CC and JT Amateur Hour, every other week we interview an author, usually from somewhere other than Nevada, whereas the Nevada Author Network is specific to local Nevada authors in our specific area who are members of our partners at the Sierra Arts Foundation and the Sierra Arts literary community. So we are trying to help promote other authors as well as ourselves. We find we learn a lot from talking to other authors, and I'm finding that just over the course of posting these YouTube videos for myself without doing a lot of tech in the background, I'm learning. And I think after watching this morning's instructional video, I'm learning that I actually have improved over the course of these 7 weeks, because it's much easier for me to just sit down. I haven't showered yet this morning. I am in my podcast clothes. I'm not quite as dressed up as I was for our last few podcasts because it's Sunday morning. It's cold. I wasn't going to jump in the shower first thing. So that's why I'm wearing my Cubs cap. And, you're seeing just a glimpse of my real life, my real day, completely unedited for the most part. So I'm inviting you into my home and my personal space if you're interested. I know some people do enjoy that kind of thing. You like to see tours of, behind the scenes tours of people's houses or meet members of their family. And if you want to meet my partner in crime, definitely check out our podcast, because when we do the amateur hour, most weeks, or now every other week, JT and I just sit down and we talk to each other, and we can get pretty goofy sometimes. So those are also posted on YouTube. Like I said, once a week. JT is currently working on getting today's podcast uploaded. We have done more than 300 episodes at this point of the CC and JT Amateur Hour. So I have gotten used to talking, and I've done a video about Podcasting 101. I've also talked about how our podcast got started and why we're continuing to do it, mainly because we really have fun. So that's something I'm also learning through this YouTube experience this year, is that I'm having fun sitting down and chatting. I don't know if anybody's on the other end. I could just be talking to myself, but I guess that's okay too. Sometimes it makes me feel a little less alone. The day before yesterday, I believe it was, I had a rough night, postmenopausal. Sometimes these things happen. And I did an early morning video talking about postmenopause, some of the things that I've been through, and it helped me feel a little less alone. JT had gotten up to check on me, but I didn't want to keep him awake because one of us should get some sleep. So I sent him back to bed and I recorded a video, and I found that that was helpful. Sitting down, getting my mind on track, trying to think through what I was experiencing and just putting that out into the world. And hopefully a few people did click on that video. I haven't looked at the analytics. I've noticed that most people don't make it all the way through my videos. I have had a couple of comments over the course of the last few weeks that I have responded to. And again, I will say, I am a very small creator. I have maybe 20 something viewers right now who may or may not be watching these videos. So if you do happen to watch them and watch all the way through, I'm trying to put some questions at the end that I hope you will respond to. I'm trying to make this a two-way experience to learn from my viewers, if I ever have them. And one of the reasons I'm doing this white YouTube video at this point, because 7 weeks into this process is pretty early, but I'm hoping to have a background on the actual building of the channel if it happens to grow. Because most of the videos that we see, or most of the videos that I have seen when I'm trying to learn more about YouTube and the YouTube experience, most of the videos are by content creators who have a following. That's how they show up on my For You. And that's probably why I watch them. I would like to see more people who are early in the stages of whatever they happen to be doing. I don't often stumble across people in the very formative, stages of their creation process. Normally the authors I've found are established and they have something of a fan base. The YouTubers I follow are established and have quite a fan base in some cases. And I don't really see the early stage people. So I'm hoping, I don't know if this will ever be pushed out there because I am in the early stages and I have very few followers. But if you do happen to stumble across this and actually watch the video through, I'm not really asking for input because at this point I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing to keep myself accountable. But if you want to interact with me at this point, that would be awesome. If you'd like to introduce yourself and, if you happen to watch the video all the way through, what caught your attention? Do you think it was helpful? Did you feel like maybe you were less alone? Or maybe you're just interested in somebody in the very early stages of figuring out what they're doing. Now, I'm also obviously an older person. I've freely mentioned that I am 62 years old. I am retired from a career in public service. And this is Two More Books LLC is the retirement career that JT and I have long dreamed of. And at our age, I think both of us at times feel like we should be much further along in this process, but we're starting out like newbies again. Only as someone who did attempt to write and publish in my 20s, this is a much different experience. Not to say that either is any harder or easier than the other, but the idea that leaving a long-time career and starting a new career is easy, that idea is, in my experience, not correct, because it is a challenge to have been somewhat at the top of your game. When I retired, I was senior archivist at the Nevada State Archives. That was the pinnacle of where I was going to progress, unless my supervisor had retired before I did. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I ended up retiring first because there were a variety of reasons that I've discussed on here, but I was at the top of my game and I felt finally confident and comfortable in what I was doing. Leaving that and starting this new journey, I don't feel confident. I'm definitely not comfortable, and I feel like I really should be farther along in the process. But I have to think back and remember when I was in my 20s, I did have a different mindset. I did have a different worldview. I was a lot more naive, and I was more willing to believe in the strengths of my skill set. Whereas now I realize that a lot of people have very similar skill sets. They may have strengths that I don't have. There are so many factors at play in trying to become successful at something, to become a big name content creator, to become a big name author. That may not be what happens, especially at this point in my life, since, as I mentioned, I'm 62 years old. That's not going to stop me from trying. Yesterday, I did a video about dreams versus reality, talking about what I expected my life as a full-time writer to be versus what my life as a full-time writer really is, because I was thinking back to when I was writing as a young woman, newly married with young kids in the house, trying to juggle everything I was doing, having the confidence in myself, maybe misplaced confidence in myself and my skills. Though I will say I got to the point where I met face to face with an editor from a big publishing house. So there was something there. I don't think I was the best writer in the world, but there was something there. Maybe there was a bit of a promise that there might be something that could be developed. So I still I don't know if my writing skills have improved over the years. I wrote things for work during my professional life. I've been a newsletter editor at various stages, and I've learned things, very basic things about graphic design, about videography, about voiceover. So I have the very, very basic skills I need to do some of the things I want to do, but I don't know that I'm good enough at any of them to really catch the attention of a large audience. And I don't know if I will ever develop any of those skills to the point where a large group will be willing to interact with me. And I am resigning myself to the fact that that's okay, because even though I still have those dreams of being a big name author, of going out and doing those book tours, of having people interact with me, talking to me about my books, talking to me about my videos, being interested in maybe some small part of what I'm doing, those dreams are still there. Those dreams are going to remain there because that gives me something to work toward. Do I expect to achieve those dreams? Maybe not in the way that I'm envisioning them, but I have learned over time, as I mentioned in yesterday's video, that sometimes things work out the way they do for a reason. A lot of that can be related to internal forces that maybe, I have had the idea that what if I do go viral? Would I be comfortable with having that many eyes on me? I mean, it's one thing to put out these videos and maybe one or two people look at them. I'm sometimes uncomfortable when my husband watches them. So the fact that I'm putting them out there is one thing. And I know they're out there. I know that people can stumble across them, but it's usually only a few people. They aren't usually interested enough to watch the whole video, and they don't normally interact. And maybe part of that is because I'm not doing something to catch their attention because I'm afraid of getting that attention. That's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. Just how much am I willing to put out there to grab attention? Is that what I really want? Maybe not. Maybe I would be perfectly happy if only a handful of people ever read my books, if only a handful of people ever watched my videos, if we had some really, we had a real sense of connection because we shared thoughts and ideas and feelings. And I've always had very small groups of friends. I've never been, the head cheerleader type of person where all eyes were on me. And in the few instances where all eyes have been on me, I've found that it has been very uncomfortable. So that kind of goes back. We can circle around to the beginning where I said, why YouTube? I am putting myself out there with the potential that one of these videos could take off and a ton of people might come back at me. People who are not in the same mindset that I am, people who will push back against what I'm saying, people who will outright, we know about all the internet trolls out there, and that thought is uncomfortable. I'm small enough where that's not an issue right now. And if I ever develop beyond that, I will have to learn a new skill set personally to be able to navigate. Because even though my skin has thickened over the years, over time, I don't cry as easily when I get critiques of my writing as I did when I was younger. I know JT for a very long time was hesitant to give me any criticism because I was so thin-skinned, and it wasn't because he didn't want to help. It was because he really didn't want to hurt my feelings. Excuse me. So that is where I am here in my YouTube journey. I'm still very few viewers. I'm stumbling over my words today. But I saw very few viewers. I don't know that many people actually view my whole video. If they do, it's probably my husband. And am I okay with that? Do I want to push past these comfort levels to try to gain more attention? And if that happens, how will I handle it? Because at this point in my life, I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable with my life. I like where I am. I just have this itch that I've had ever since I was a kid to do something where I became a big name, whatever that might mean. Could be maybe just a few hundred people. Doesn't have to be much more than that. Even though I've joked about becoming a New York Times bestseller, but, realistically, the odds of that happening are probably pretty slim based on the effort I'm putting into it right now. If I ever become a big name person on YouTube as a content creator, it will be totally by accident, because I am not, at this point in time, willing to put in the effort necessary to achieve a lofty goal like that. Because I mentioned a couple of times the video I watched this morning. It was a very short video, about 8 minutes long. And he talked about his wife being able to quit her job to stay home with the kids. They bought the house they wanted. They've been able to travel. He does money, financial videos, which are probably much more interesting to a wider portion of the population than my videos would be. I think my videos are very niche, and there may be a viewership out there for them, but finding them is challenging because keywords and, just trying to expand my reach has been beyond me to this point. JT and I have not had success in gaining a lot of followers on social media, which is why, partially probably why our books aren't selling well, and it's a whole thing. So coming back to YouTube, it's easy, it's fairly quick because I'm not pre-planning, I'm not scripting, I'm not doing a lot of editing, just like I said, the quick cut off the beginning and the end and uploading it, throwing in the occasional picture, so that I'm free to get to work on these. And just so you know, if you haven't seen me before, From Tundra to Tiara is a cozy romance, a contemporary that JT and I co-wrote a couple of years ago after seeing the movie The Lost City with Sandra Bullock and Channing Tatum and a very funny Daniel Radcliffe. But we thought, maybe we could try something similar. We really enjoyed this process. So at some point when we have a little free time, we're noodling the idea of another book in this series, which we are calling Queens and Consorts. It is a matriarchal society, which may be popular right now. I'm also currently working on my Restless Spirit series. Book 1, Passion Restored, was released last year. Takes place in Virginia City, Nevada. It deals with paranormal ghosts. It is an older couple in their 50s who come together as a result of spirit activity, and they don't know whether their relationship is real or if they're being pushed together by external forces. So I am currently working on book 2, in which the main characters of this book are not the emphasis, but they still play a part in the overall story. Each book will have different main characters. I'm planning for 6 books in the Restless Spirit series. Book 3 will really be the book that initially spurred the entire idea of the series. So that I'm hoping will come out in the summer. Book 2 I'm hoping to have out in April. So part of the reason I'm doing YouTube is hopefully if anybody does stumble across these, that they might be interested in checking out both my books and JT's books. He has written quite a few more than I have. He has his Sheriff in Nevada series. He's currently working on book 4 of that. He has his Serving Salvation science fiction series, which he's got a 3-book trilogy, Serving Salvation. He is releasing the novella trilogy, Finding Salvation, in March. That is due to come out on St. Patrick's Day, March 17th. He's also working on another, something of a standalone that's in the Salvation universe. It's somewhat in tandem with Finding Salvation, about that time period. Finding Salvation is about the launching of the ship Salvation, whereas the book that he's hoping to release in the summer, that book takes place on Earth. It's what happens after the Salvation leaves. So he has the Salvation universe. He has the Tucci Chronicles, which is graphic, very adult, definitely 18 plus. It's got graphic sex and violence. He has written the Emma Parks series, which is a woman from a privileged family who becomes a child protective services worker, and she finds out that the life is not quite what she expected it to be. She was trying to set out on her own and have her own life away from her privileged family, and we all know that sometimes things don't go the way we planned. And then he also has a book called Duties Faithfully Executed, which is a political. I don't know if he'll ever write another book in that universe, but it is. We both worked for state government, and I ran for office back in 20 years ago, back in 2006. I ran for the Board of Regents for our local university system. So we are familiar with politics and the political process based on our previous experience. So there may be some interesting insights in that book. And I think all of us are kind of interested in the political climate of the world right now, no matter what our beliefs. I'm sure most of us feel that there are things that are happening that we do not appreciate or approve of. So he has written quite a few books. And as I said, we may co-write another romance together because we had so much fun doing that. I wrote the female chapter perspectives and he wrote the male chapter perspectives. The female character is Lexi, who is a reluctant royal. And then Travis, the male character, is an ex-Navy SEAL who's living in the Alaskan wilderness, and he races dog sleds. So we're coming up on the Iditarod. If you're interested, might be a good time to read that. Anyway, this wasn't meant to be a commercial for my books. I just thought I'd throw that in here as part of the reason why I am doing YouTube is to make myself more visible, to see if maybe people who are interested in watching my videos might also be interested in reading my books. But overall, the reason why I'm doing YouTube is that it's simple. If you are at all interested in trying this, I recommend just getting a cheap tripod. If you have a smartphone of some kind, you will usually have video camera capabilities, and you can just sit down and record yourself. The recommendation is usually that you have the screen facing away from you and just point the external camera in your direction, because I believe that's better quality. I tried that for a little while, but I like to be able to see what's going on screen. I'm getting better at looking at the green light so it doesn't look like I'm looking off to the side when I'm talking to you. There are little nuances that I'm learning along the way. So if you want to try this out for yourself, it really is pretty simple. I plug my phone into my computer, download the video. Like I said, I use the free version of DaVinci Resolve. There is a little bit of a learning curve, but basically I take the video and I just drop it into DaVinci. You have to put it down. There are videos all over YouTube that show you how to use DaVinci, just the basics, because it can be quite intimidating if you're looking into adjusting the audio and the video quality and adding music and things like that. I am nowhere near going that far with my editing skills. Mine are just very basic right now. I know how to put a picture into my video. I know how to move it to where I want it to be. If it's something where I don't care if my face is visible, I'll put it right over my face, but I could move it over into the corner. Once I've done that editing, there is the option to export the video for YouTube quality. You just basically, it says YouTube, you click on that, do export. It does everything necessary to make it so that it's viewable on YouTube. Go to my YouTube channel. There is a YouTube studio where it gives you a little create button. You upload the video to that. You go through a series of steps where you give the video the title, you do a brief description, whether or not it's for kids. And in most cases, unless you are specifically making videos for kids, do not choose that option. That's one thing I've learned. Even if you feel like your video is safe for kids, if it's not specifically a Miss Rachel type video, you probably don't want to choose that it's for kids, because that will limit your viewing audience to kids, basically, and maybe their parents. But you don't, unless you're specifically trying to target that audience, that is one thing I highly recommend, is say, no, it's not for kids. It gives you a few extra options that you go through, and then once you get to the final screen, you can make it either public or private. You can play around with YouTube and keep everything private if you just want to play around and see what happens. But if you want to make it public, you can either put it up right away, or you can schedule it to be, live at a certain time. If you choose the premiere option. Now, I did this once with my January wrap-up video. I don't recommend this unless you're doing a specific video and you know people will show up, because that allows people to watch the video together and have a running chat conversation going on while they're watching your video. Basically, what ended up happening was that JT and I sat down and chatted with each other while we watched the video together, which is fine, but I am not going to do that in the future unless I have something that I specifically want people to watch together. Because for the most part, if people stumble across these videos, that's awesome. But so far, not many have. I don't think most people have been interested enough to try to keep up with my ramblings. But as I say now at the end of my videos, I normally ask a question of you. My question is, are you interested in trying YouTube? If so, has this video given you the confidence to just try to put something out there without going too deeply into all the extra things that you can do to make it a polished product? Because my goal, like I said earlier, encourage, educate, and entertain. This video is definitely meant to be encouragement that if you want to try this YouTube thing, go for it. You don't know what might happen. Don't wait until you have the skills that you feel you need in order to make a good video. Just put something out there and see what happens. And like I said just a moment ago, it doesn't even have to be public. You can make it private. You could just share it with your family and friends. It is possible to do things like that as well. So that's why I am doing this YouTube journey right now, basically because it's simple. Keep it simple, silly. It's allowing me to be accountable to myself by doing my daily videos without a lot of extra steps that would stop me in my tracks. In the meantime, I'm becoming more comfortable in front of the camera. I think I'm becoming more coherent, even though I'm not scripting these things. And, I'm hoping that if anybody stumbles across these, they will find it interesting to see the early journey of someone who's trying to maybe build an audience. Whether or not I do, I don't know. Again, that might be subconsciously me not really wanting to get out there and having to deal with all the trolls. So, I at least hope that the few people who may stumble across this and watch the videos all the way through find some encouragement to try something that maybe they've been afraid to try. It doesn't have to necessarily be YouTube videos. So, thank you for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. I'm Cassidy Carson, and this is The Life of a Writer. Take care.